Hi, and welcome to Brain Binge. Hope you're doing well, whether you're trying to fall asleep on a long drive, cleaning, or just escaping for a bit. Today, we're diving into, well, a pretty terrifying hypothetical. Imagine that starting tomorrow night, nobody on Earth could sleep anymore.
And we're not talking about just a bad case of insomnia here.
No, not at all. This is a complete, irreversible biological failure. You can lie down, you can rest, but your brain, it just never makes that switch into actual restorative sleep.
It's stuck, permanently stuck in what you could call resting wakefulness.
Okay, let's unpack this. Before we look at the chaos, we have to look at what we are actually losing. I think most of us see sleep as just, downtime, passive rest.
And that's the biggest misconception, right? Sleep is anything but passive. It's an incredibly active process. Your brain is running these essential maintenance programs that it physically cannot run while you're awake and processing the world.
So it's not like turning off a computer. It's more like running a deep defrag and a virus scan.
That's a perfect analogy, and the first job on the list is memory.
Right. Memory consolidation. I've heard of that.
It's fundamental. All the stuff you learn during the day, all that fragile short-term information. During deep sleep, your brain replays it, stabilizes it, and files it away for the long term.
That's why they say to study before you go to bed.
Exactly. But there's another side to it. Something called neural pruning.
Pruning.
Yeah.
Like gardening.
Pretty much. Your brain makes a ton of new connections every single day. Just informational clutter, most of it. While you sleep, your brain goes through and snips away the connections you don't need.
It keeps the network efficient.
Without that nightly cleanup, your brain would just get bogged down. It would be like a hard drive with no space left. Thinking would slow to a crawl.
That's fascinating. But there's also a more literal cleaning process going on, isn't there?
Yeah.
Something about washing the brain.
You're talking about the glymphatic system, and this is where the scenario gets really, really scary.
Okay, lay it on me.
So when your brain is working hard all day, it produces metabolic waste. Toxic proteins, things like amyloid beta, which you might have heard of in relation to Alzheimer's disease.
Right, and that stuff needs to be cleared out.
It has to be. And the glymphatic system is how it happens. During deep sleep, your brain cells, they actually shrink.
They shrink.
By up to 60%. This opens all these channels, and then cerebrospinal fluid rushes through, literally flushing the toxins out of your brain tissue.
Wow.
That process is almost non-existent when you're awake. So, in our scenario, without deep sleep, that toxic sludge just builds up day after day.
That's a ticking time bomb inside everyone's skull.
It is a neurological bomb, and that's just the brain. The rest of the body is also falling apart without that maintenance window.
So what's happening systemically? Muscles? Organs?
It's physical repair time. Human growth hormone peaks during deep sleep. That's what repairs your muscles, your tissues. It's also when your body regulates key hormones. The ones that control hunger, for a start. Ghrelin and leptin. Without sleep, that balance goes haywire. You feel starving all the time, even if you've eaten.
So that's why you crave junk food when you're tired.
It is. Your body is screaming for energy. And at the same time, your stress hormones like cortisol are just redlining constantly, which leads to inflammation, anxiety.
And it hammers your immune system, I'm guessing.
It absolutely crushes it. Sleep is when your immune system marshals its forces. Without it, your body's ability to fight off even a simple cold is severely compromised.
Okay, so that's the machine we're breaking. Let's talk about the immediate effects. Most of us have pulled an all-nighter. What's the measurable cost of just one missed night?
It's immediate and it's stark. Your reaction time plummets. Your attention span is shot. You can't filter out distractions. And your short-term memory just fails.
And your self-control.
Your self-control goes right out the window. The prefrontal cortex, your brain's CEO, is the first to suffer. That's why you get so irritable and emotional after one bad night.
And then there's that wild fact about the 24-hour mark.
It's sobering, isn't it? After just 24 hours of being awake, your cognitive performance is equivalent to having a blood alcohol content of 0.10%.
Which is legally drunk. Everywhere.
Legally drunk. So imagine the entire planet, every single person operating at that level of impairment all at once.
That's just one night. What happens when it becomes chronic? When this isn't an all-nighter, it's just life now.
The whole system starts to buckle. The risk of accidents obviously goes through the roof. Your immune system is so weak you're constantly sick. And the long-term health consequences are catastrophic.
We're talking heart disease, right?
Heart disease, high blood pressure, strokes. The constant flood of stress hormones puts an unbearable strain on your cardiovascular system. And metabolically, you're looking at a massive spike in obesity and type 2 diabetes because your body can't regulate blood sugar anymore.
There's a real-world parallel for this, isn't there? A rare disease that shows us the terrifying endpoint.
Yes. Fatal familial insomnia, or FFI.
Yeah.
It's a horrible genetic prion disease, but it's the perfect, tragic model for our scenario.
What happens to people with FFI?
It starts with an inability to sleep, and it progresses
Yeah.
quickly to a point where they cannot sleep at all. Their brain is trapped in a state of hyperarousal, just like in our hypothetical.
And the result isn't just exhaustion.
It's so much worse. Their autonomic nervous system completely breaks down. They can't regulate their body temperature, their heart rate, their blood pressure. They start having severe hallucinations, confusion.
And eventually,
Eventually, it leads to death, usually within about a year to 18 months. Not from being tired, but from total systemic organ failure caused by the brain's inability to shut down and repair.
so this is our baseline. The entire human race has just contracted a non-genetic version of FFI.
That's it. No deep sleep, no REM, no repair cycle. Ever again.
Let's start the clock, the first 24 hours.
Yeah.
So tonight is normal, everyone goes to sleep. The change begins tomorrow night.
Right, so tomorrow night, billions of people get into bed expecting that daily reset.
But the button is broken.
The button is broken, they toss and turn, they feel tired, sure, but the brain just won't switch off.
Yeah.
The immediate assumption for everyone is personal.
I'm stressed. I drank coffee too late. It's my phone.
Exactly. It's just a bad night of insomnia, a really, really bad night. They might doze for a few minutes here and there, but it's shallow. It's not real sleep.
So the next morning, day 1, the alarm goes off. What's the mood?
Foggy. Grumpy. But functional. Just about. People are running on adrenaline and the assumption that, I'll definitely sleep tonight. So they get in their cars, they go to work, they send their kids to school.
But then they start talking to each other?
And that's when the first inkling of the scale of this thing begins to dawn. You see it explode on social media first.
The memes.
Oh, the memes would be instantaneous. Global all-nighter jokes about the planet being over-caffeinated. It would be a day defined by a mix of humor, confusion, and deep, deep fatigue.
But while the jokes are flying, some people are getting the first hard data that this is something else entirely.
Yeah, the biohackers, the people with sleep-tracking rings and smartwatches. Their devices are telling them something is profoundly wrong.
What does the data show?
It shows they were in bed for 8 hours, but their heart rate never dropped properly. There were no deep or REM sleep stages recorded. Their brain activity, if they were to get an EEG, would show they were basically awake the whole night.
The brain looks awake even if the body is still.
And that's the terrifying distinction. It's not rest, it's just quiet wakefulness. At the same time, doctors' offices and hospitals are being flooded.
By people convinced they have the worst insomnia of their lives.
And the initial diagnosis is going to be just that. Doctors will assume some kind of environmental trigger. A new virus, maybe, or a pollutant. They'll prescribe sleeping pills.
Which won't work.
They'll knock you out, maybe. But it's just sedation. It's not sleep. The brain scans would prove it.
Yeah.
And as day 1 ends, the experts, the sleep scientists, they start to feel this cold dread.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Because they're the ones who realize this isn't an environmental problem. This is a hardware problem. The human biological mechanism for sleep is broken globally.
The denial phase is over. We are now in a global crisis. The first week, day 2, day 3, people have been awake for over 48 hours.
Now the decline accelerates. It's not just brain fog anymore. It's a catastrophic loss of cognitive function. Attention spans are gone. Short-term memory is, well, it's non-existent. You can't follow a complex thought.
Multitasking becomes impossible.
Any kind of abstract thinking or problem solving just fails. And this is when the body's emergency failsafe kicks in with disastrous consequences. Microsleeps.
Explain what a microsleep is, because it's not an app.
Not at all. It's your brain involuntarily shutting down parts of itself for a few seconds. You could be driving, your eyes could be wide open, but for 2, 3, 5 seconds, you are not there. You are functionally unconscious.
And that is the trigger for a public safety meltdown.
An immediate worldwide catastrophe. A surgeon's brain switches off for 3 seconds mid-operation, an air traffic controller's for 5, a driver on the highway.
The number of accidents would just skyrocket.
In every sector, factories, power plants, construction sites, any job that requires sustained attention becomes lethally dangerous. High-risk professions would have to shut down immediately.
So governments have to step in. What does that response look like?
They'd declare a global medical emergency. All resources would be thrown at trying to solve it. Scientists would be trying every drug imaginable, from sedatives to general anesthetics.
And they would make that horrible discovery.
They'd find that you can knock people unconscious, but you can't make them sleep. The brain scans would be the proof. The EEG patterns would show none of the restorative brain waves. It's just a flat line of unconsciousness, not the beautiful, complex architecture of sleep.
The problem isn't a lack of sedation. It's a broken switch.
A broken biological switch that no drug can flip.
Moving on to days 4 and 5. The brain is now accumulating toxins and has had no repair for nearly 100 hours. What happens to our emotional state?
Total emotional breakdown. With the prefrontal cortex essentially offline, there's no filter. People are incredibly irritable. Explosive anger over nothing, uncontrollable crying, pervasive, crippling anxiety becomes the baseline emotional state for billions.
And the mind starts to fracture.
It does. The lines blur, people start experiencing psychosis, visual and auditory hallucinations, deeply paranoid thoughts. They can't tell the difference between a memory and something that's happening right now. The brain, desperate for a reset, just starts inventing its own reality.
What does this do to the modern economy, the knowledge economy?
It destroys it completely. Any job that requires creativity, focus, complex planning, it's over. Programming, design, engineering, finance, productivity doesn't just dip, it crashes to near zero.
Schools must be chaos.
Utter chaos. Neither the students nor the teachers can concentrate or retain information. Businesses are no longer trying to innovate or grow, they're just trying to keep the lights on. It's emergency mode everywhere.
And all of this pressure lands on the healthcare system.
Which is already collapsing. The hospitals are overwhelmed with accident victims, people having heart attacks from the stress, and a massive wave of psychiatric emergencies.
But the doctors and nurses are also sleep deprived.
And that's the critical failure. The caregivers are making mistakes. They're cognitively impaired. They're trying to save a world that's falling apart while they themselves are falling apart too. By the end of week 1, it's undeniable. This is a species-level breakdown.
And there's no cure in sight. So we move into the long term, months into the unsleeping world. What does that look like?
The physical collapse becomes chronic. The immune system is the first to go completely. People are sick all the time. A simple infection could be a death sentence. Wounds don't heal properly. Pandemics would just rip through the population unchecked.
And the strain on the heart and the metabolic system?
It becomes fatal for many. Universal high blood pressure. Heart attacks and strokes become commonplace. The hormonal chaos leads to rampant obesity and diabetes, which then fuels every other problem. Lifespans would shorten dramatically.
And mentally, does the psychosis get better or worse?
So much worse. It becomes a new normal. The brain is so full of toxic waste and so lacking in maintenance that hallucinations, delusions, and disordered thinking are just a constant state of being. Maintaining a coherent sense of self or reality becomes a daily struggle.
How can a complex civilization function if everyone is in that state?
It can't. Not in its current form. Industries that require absolute precision, they fail. Aviation, advanced surgery, scientific research, you just can't do it.
So what's left? What kind of work becomes important?
The simple, the manual, the physical, farming, basic repairs, local logistics, things that rely more on muscle memory and less on abstract moment-to-moment problem solving. Society is forced to become simpler, more local.
This brings up the automation paradox. Couldn't AI and robots just take over?
It's a trap, isn't it? In theory, yes. You could have AI run the power grid or fly the planes. But who maintains the AI? Who writes the code, troubleshoots the hardware, fixes the bugs when something goes wrong?
A sleep-deprived programmer trying to debug a complex system.
It's a recipe for disaster. They'd be more likely to crash the system than fix it. Our own complexity becomes our biggest enemy. The technology that could save us is too complicated for our broken minds to manage.
And this just kills the future of knowledge, doesn't it?
It's the end of learning as we know it. Without memory consolidation, education is pointless. And a generation of children growing up in this world, they might never develop the cognitive abilities we take for granted. Attention, emotional regulation, all of it would be stunted.
Scientific progress just stops.
It grinds to a halt. We'd become a society living off the intellectual capital of the past, unable to generate any new breakthroughs.
Let's talk about the cultural shifts. If you're always awake, how do you even structure a day?
You have to invent artificial rhythms. The government or community would have to enforce quiet hours, mandatory periods of low stimulation, not because people feel sleepy, but to try and manually reduce the collective stress and prevent total societal burnout.
And how do people cope individually? How do they escape the nonstop noise in their own heads?
You'd see a split. Some would turn to escapism, constant media consumption, substance abuse, anything to numb the relentless consciousness. But others would turn inward.
To spirituality.
Spirituality, philosophy, meditation, ritual, anything that provides an anchor of meaning and structure in a world that has lost its natural rhythm. A desperate search for inner peace when the body can't provide it.
And relationships, families.
Under unimaginable strain, the constant irritability and emotional volatility would make living together incredibly difficult. Parenting would become a near impossible task.
So the demographic outlook is bleak.
Very bleak. Shorter lifespans due to health failures, and you'd expect birth rates to plummet. The future is just too unstable and demanding to bring new life into. Civilization doesn't just vanish, it slowly erodes.
It's a devastating picture.
Yeah.
But there's a fascinating contrast to all this. In our scenario, it's only humans who are affected. The animals are fine.
And that contrast really highlights how fundamental sleep is. We see sleep or sleep-like states in almost every animal ever studied. So as humanity collapses, the rest of the natural world just carries on with its nightly rest.
Which proves this isn't some quirky human need. It's a biological law.
It is. But what's really amazing is how other species have adapted the form of their sleep to survive in ways we can't.
Like dolphins.
Dolphins and whales are the classic example. They have to breathe at the surface, so they can't ever fully shut down. So what do? They sleep with half a brain at a time.
Unihemispheric sleep.
Exactly. One half of the brain goes into deep, restorative, slow-wave sleep, while the other half stays awake to manage swimming, breathing, and watching for sharks. Then they switch.
They figured out how to run the maintenance cycle on one engine while the other keeps the plane flying.
A perfect way to put it. And seals do something similar. On land, they sleep with their whole brain. In the water, where it's dangerous, they switch to half-brain sleep. They adapt to their environment.
What about birds? Migratory birds that fly for days or weeks on end.
They are the masters of efficiency. They also use unihemispheric sleep while gliding, but they also take what are essentially power naps in midair.
Micronaps.
Seconds-long bursts of sleep while still flying. And we have the data on this from birds like the frigate bird.
Oh, the frigate bird is incredible.
They can stay in the air for weeks. And studies with tiny EEG monitors on their heads found they get, on average, less than an hour of sleep a day on those long flights, cobbled together from these tiny little naps.
But the key is, it's real sleep.
That is the key. And when they get back to land, they sleep for hours and hours to pay off that sleep debt. They can function on a tiny amount, but they can't function on zero. No animal can.
Even large land animals have found ways to minimize it.
Right. They have. Elephants might only sleep for a couple of hours a day, sometimes standing up. Giraffes take these tiny, fragmented naps that last only a few minutes. They're always on alert for predators.
And this goes all the way down to, insects?
All the way down. Even fruit flies show sleep-like behavior. They have periods of inactivity, and if you keep them awake, they show a rebound effect. They try to rest more later. It proves the need for some kind of restorative rest is universal.
So as humanity is falling apart, we're watching our pets curl up and go to sleep. We're hearing the birds roost at night.
It's the final, tragic proof. This is a uniquely human catastrophe. We are trapped awake in a world that is still peacefully resting.
So in this nightmare world, is there any hope? Does anyone cope better than anyone else?
Let's be really clear here. No one is immune. The biological breakdown is happening to everyone. Resilience just means you decline a little more slowly.
So who are the people who last the longest?
Well, initially you'd think people who are already used to chaos. Emergency room doctors, soldiers, shift workers. They have coping mechanisms for sleep deprivation built in. They might have a slight edge at the beginning.
And what about personal habits? Does lifestyle matter?
A lot. People who already have strong routines, who can impose that structure on their day, they do better. Enforcing those quiet hours on yourself, even when you don't feel tired, helps lower the constant stress load. And of course, being in better physical health to begin with gives you more reserves to burn through.
Are there any mental strategies that could help?
Absolutely. Things like meditation, controlled breathing, gentle exercise. They don't replace sleep, not even close. But they can help manage the emotional volatility and anxiety. They give you a tool to quiet the storm in your head, even just for a moment.
And what about at the community level?
Community is everything. Strong local communities, people who trust each other. They survive longer. They can share resources. They can take turns doing dangerous tasks. They can look after each other's kids. It's the social fabric that holds things together when individual minds are fraying.
But in the end, the biology is relentless.
The biology always wins. The toxic waste is still building up. The neural networks are still degrading. The people who survive are just the ones who manage the decline most gracefully.
So what does this all mean? We started with this tiny biological failure, and we've ended with the collapse of civilization. The contrast with the animals, who found ways to adapt, just makes it all the more stark.
It really makes you realize how fragile we are. We build these vast, complex societies, we create incredible technology, we think we've conquered nature. But all of it, every single bit of our innovation, our art, our science, our ability to cooperate, it's all built on the silent, automatic, and completely fragile assumption that we can close our eyes for a few hours each night and reset.
The moment that one simple biological function fails, everything we've built on top of it just unravels. Our complexity is our greatest vulnerability.
Exactly. The unsleeping world reveals that our ability to think, to create, to be human in the way we define it is subsidized by a biological process we take completely for granted.
And perhaps that's the ultimate lesson, that for all our intelligence, we were the one species that built a world so demanding that we couldn't survive without the perfect, optimized sleep cycle we evolved with. We couldn't adapt.
When the ultimate reset button failed, our own complexity became our cage.
If you enjoyed this Brain Binge, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps us keep diving deep into these big questions. Thanks for listening, and have a blessed day.
That's it for this episode of Brain Binge. If you enjoyed getting your mind twisted tonight, do me a favor, comment, like, and subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive. Got a weird fact, mystery, or place you want an episode about? Drop it in the comments. I read as many as I can, and I'm always hunting for new ideas. Thanks for listening, and thanks for letting your brain binge with me for a while. Stay well, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.